Hello and welcome to Garblag Games and yet another session of our Lower Decks game. As you may know, we actually have the entire crew again, which is lovely to see. We've had a few sessions where people have been otherwise unavailable. So great to see you all, everyone together on one screen, and not just a frozen image as we've had. I did give Pete the option. I did a snip of Badgie. So if anyone was missing, they'd have Badgie instead. But Pete went for the actual screen grabs of the individuals. So last session, specifically for Roger, because you weren't here last week, if I remember correctly, the group they started with a visit to the holodeck to do some maintenance, clearing out filters and all that sort of lovely stuff. When they got there, the holodeck was still looked like it was in use by the previous people to have booked it. They gained entrance and found themselves in a holodeck holonovel called La Courtisane, which was basically a Jilly Cooper-esque holonovel, a raunchy French-style novel. What did you call it, Jan? A
Bonkbuster.
Bonkbuster, yes. With the group moving through trying to find their two missing crew who were still in there so that they could shut the program down and clean the holodeck. There were several occasions where holodeck characters tried to seduce them, and Ngao never got to go back and enjoy more of the petting that she was getting from that first chamber that you guys went into. But never mind. Following that, the captain's log was that there's the nearby subspace array is down for maintenance. So your ship has been assigned to receive the incoming communications from the Mutara Deep Space Relay, which is the sole communication link between the Federation and the Delta Quadrant since the Voyager returned. And you were preparing to receive that. The command crew were going to pipe the entire thing through the communications array, so through the communications of the ship, so everyone could hear this communication coming from the Delta Quadrant, because everyone was very excited about it. Shortly before that was due to happen, like about 15 minutes before, through that same subspace link, the ship received a 15-minute, was it 15-minute or 15-second? Sorry, a 13 to 15-second long static burst, which several members of the group could figured out was some kind of repeating pattern, some kind of pattern that was not just static. The captain started organizing or asking questions and starting to organize people to determine the nature of the static and try to decrypt it. At the same time, in the science lab, which Scon was in, there was a mass that had been retrieved from an asteroid by a science team, which was being experimented on. Something broke the containment device that it was in, and the scientist who was standing beside it found his arm started to visibly atrophy whilst he was standing by it. Someone else went over to assist, despite Scon telling them otherwise, and found his hand started atrophying after he had touched his colleague. Scon got Tenon to transport the mass from the broken containment to another containment. Unfortunately, Tenon rolled a 20. So he managed most of it, but some parts are elsewhere now. So there is a biological outbreak, as well as certain members of the group being assigned to help decrypt this pattern. So we left it last session with Ngao and Tenon being assigned as part of the communications decryption team, and Scon, and we pretty much were thinking that Atcha would be the same, would be dealing with the biological containment. She's in the science lab, you're not at the moment. There is a communications sort of think Zoom call for the irony of it between MedLab, the sick bay, sorry, and the science lab. There is another communication coming in because the medical officer is familiar with another medical officer on the USS Intrepid, who is very good with viral and disease-based issues, and they're trying to get hold of her at the moment. So that's where we are at the moment. Can anybody think of anything else I've missed or have any questions before we move further? I'm going to take that as a general no.
Nope. Sorry, just a quick one. So have the people that have been affected by the atrophy, have they been isolated and quarantined?
Scott immediately put a quarantine around the science lab. So it's only the people in the science lab who are currently at danger of being affected. And everyone seems to be now trying to remain further away from the two people who have been affected. So for the communications, Rupert set up a trait, communications trait, insight into communication static last session. I have 2 extended tasks, one for each group for dealing with the actual issues. So what we will do is let's start with people's intentions. So we'll start with Roger, since Roger wasn't here, unless Roger would rather be left till last.
No, I think I've got an idea of what Danny would be trying to do. So he would probably want to get on like the Starfleet version of a biohazard suit, and he'd want to transport in to the science lab.
Okay.
With a bunch of medical equipment, so he can start trying to look at medical reasons for the atrophy that's taken effect and can start taking detailed medical scans, because I'm guessing there'd be more medical equipment that would be designed for that than probably what's currently in the science lab.
So the way equipment works in general with Star Trek Adventures is, so long as you are in a situation where you've got time to deal with it, so if you're about to go on an away mission, you can pretty much have whatever you want before you leave. If it's after the mission has started or you're in a situation like this, then there's a cost involved. So an environment suit, which I would say was probably, they'd have an equivalent, which would be what you would want, is an opportunity cost of 2, which basically means if it's opportunity, that's momentum spend. There's another thing called escalation, which is if you're doing something that threatens to escalate the situation. You're picking up a big ass phaser rifle or, tricobalt bombs or whatever, then there's a threat.
So bringing the napalm is a bit frowned on.
Yeah. And that's one of the other things I like with this, and this was the first edition as well. As long as you're using a phaser on stun, we don't worry too much about it. If you decide to try to kill someone, then you add to threat because you're escalating the situation, which I like. So it would be a cost of 2 momentum to be able to easily access a.
Would that cover like the medical equipment I would bring with me?
Yeah, I'd say.
Okay.
So
how much momentum is there?
Well, that's what I was going to say. 5 of each.
Yes.
It doesn't reset at the beginning of a session.
They start of each mission.
Nice. All right. So
okay.
5 of each.
If people are cool with that, then I would like to spend the momentum to get the med gear and get into the science lab area.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Rupert, would you care to roll your transporter skill again? Just to see if we can have some fun with, given the last transporter situation.
I have total faith in Rupert.
I think last time I had 4 die and somehow still did not succeed. It was really impressive.
It literally just bought a new talent relating to transporter, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So I think this is control and engineering. I think would be. I can't remember what I said last time. I can't be bothered to dig into the book. I think digging into the book too much is a bit just gets a bit annoying after a while.
I have 1 success.
Good enough. You get your gear on. He even waits for you to put your stuff on before you beam in your suit. You're in a reasonably sized lab. There are lots of varying kinds of scientific equipment, lots of secure containers for varying things. One of which you're fairly sure is the one that had the Triborgs in it last time. That's currently being defluffed, which involves sticking a stick down into it and running it around with electric charge to static pull everything, all the fur to it. Either that, or you can get the lint roll and just roll it around the inside of the tank. You might need to get a few extra refills though. But you find yourself in there. Scon, Sabra, who is the chief science officer of the El Cajon, and a number of other science officers, junior science officers, ranging from ensign to lieutenants, senior grade.
Cool. All right. I guess the first thing I'm going to do is try and scan one of the people suffering from the atrophy.
No problem.
Well, not touching them, just kind of like stay there, put your hand on the table and hold still.
Yeah. No worries. So what we'll do is we'll do the dice rolls. I'll go through everybody and then we'll do the dice rolls as appropriate. So just put down because otherwise my brain will lose who's in what order. So, Nick, since you are in the same area, looks like it's joined Mummy. Oh, good girl, Flu.
I have a trouble.
She's being very lovely today. I see. Nice. So, Nick.
Yeah, so since I'm in the same area, like you say, what I'll do is I will just help. I'll assist Danny when he comes in because I can be like, that guy got the atrophy arm from touching that guy and pointing out like there's the thing that the goop was in and it's broken, and there's the thing that the goop's in now, and just explaining everything that's in there that you missed while you were outside. So I'll assist you.
Sure, cool. Sounds good.
One thing you would have heard was when the computer did an alarm just before you started getting yourself organized to come here, basically informing everyone that a contaminant had been detected, as well as the science room. It was also there were extra contaminants found in the racquetball court 2, the Jeffries tube nearest to stellar cartography, and the captain's rest room. So it is around a few places, but you can be doing that. Rupert, what would you be doing? I believe we had you go into the room that they'd set aside with all the varying different kinds of communication gear, ranging from 2 cups attached by strings, by a piece of string, up to the oscilloscopes and CB radios and all the varying types of communication equipment.
So I think I was ordered into this room, wasn't I, as part of the crack team to try and work out what's going on.
Yeah.
So is the lieutenant who ordered me in here, is he there? He or she actually?
It was your boss who sent you in here, the chief engineer. He is currently dealing with other matters. But there are others here. Actually, it's a good question. I'm going to roll a dice. You want me to roll low? I want to roll high. That's high enough. The chap who you went into the holodeck to retrieve is in here, trying not to notice you, given that he was in. Well, he and his friend had started a G.D. Cooper style Hollow novel, and you guys had gone into the room to help them out. So he's trying not to notice you and not to be noticed by you because he's embarrassed.
Okay, so I think I'm going to try and. Sorry, can you remind me? Had I looked into whether or not there was anything wrong with the communications equipment on the ship?
Don't think you had actually. That doesn't ring a bell. So
Yes, so I think I would try and do that. Just make sure it's nothing that I have done that has caused the problem.
no problem. And how about you, my love?
I'm running diagnostics on the static sound,
No problem.
the where it came from, if it's got a particular signature or anything.
Cool. So what I will suggest what I'll do then is I'm going to go through from the first people from Roger and Nick, and then I'll go to the other two of you. Roger and Nick, you're working together. I'm going to treat these as part of the extended task in the same way as in the first mission where we used that to have you chasing down the bit of goop. So you'll make your varying dice rolls, and when you've had enough successes, then you get to the end of the track and you have successfully done the thing you're trying to do. I did notice when I was reading too, however, that as is often the case, I was doing it slightly wrong last time. So you have the difficulty, you've got the resistance, and once you successfully put some on the track, which is equivalent to the department that you're using, it's 2 points of momentum for each extra point of progress rather than 1.1. So it's not quite. I think we went through it a bit too quickly because I went, just do that. It wasn't quite right. So until I don't forget again, I was in this. No, my brain. Momentum. Progress. Right. So let's start with Thatcher and Scone. So I would say the likely situation for you is it would be, excuse me, probably insight and medicine. How would Scone be assisting?
Well, like I said, I will just be pointing out everything that Danny didn't see when he was in there.
Okay.
So point towards where the guys are and the box where the goop is and everything, and like how long ago it happened and how quickly that took effect and all that stuff.
So my thought process would probably be presence and command, but because you're assisting. Again, happy for you to come up with other suggestions if you think there are better.
No, that's cool.
For me, could it be reason and medicine?
Yeah.
I'm trying to piece the picture together in my head.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. And because you use a tricorder, I don't know whether this is what it's meant to be, but this is the way I'm doing it. You get a bonus dice with the tricorder.
Nice.
Cool. I don't know if I've got a couple of talents that could theoretically help, but I'm not sure what they do exactly. I've got first response and quick study.
Okay. So we'll quickly have a look at those. And whilst I'm looking for that, there's a talent I saw which I thought would be perfect for Scone, which is actually one that Jeff from Lollygaggers had for his science officer, which is rapid hypothesis. When you ask 2 or more questions using obtained information, you may immediately create a trait representing your theoretically understanding and study of those questions. So you get asked 2 questions, and then you could just for free create a trait, which is quite good.
Yeah, that's cool.
So first response: when you attempt first aid during combat, the first.
Oh no, okay, so that doesn't apply.
Sorry, what was the other one?
Quick study.
Okay, when attempting a task that will involve an unfamiliar practice, technique, or medical procedure, or which is to treat an unfamiliar species, ignore any difficulty or complication range increase stemming from your unfamiliarity.
Okay, so that's more. It would resolve it wouldn't apply an increase in difficulty rather than anything. Okay. And I don't know whether emergency medicine would count as to this.
Again, because it's lower decks and because it's close enough, I'm going to say yes.
Cool. Okay, so I get an extra dice from the tricord. Can I use one momentum to gain another one?
Sure. Nick, do you want to roll first? See what Roger's working with.
Sure. So I've got 9, 10, 11. So I just got less than 11. Well, 11 or less. 3. Okay.
Yes.
That's cool. I don't have a focus. It's good enough anyway. But 1 success.
Okie dokie.
So 3 and a 17. How does a focus apply again? Is it to the department?
Yes. So if your department is if it's equal to or below your department, then
Cool. So that's 2.
So 2 plus the one from.
Hang on. Sorry, I've had to roll 2 more dice. I only have 2. 12 and 13, which is enough because I need 15s or less. So 4 successes from me plus the one from Nick.
Nice.
Nice.
So that's 5. The difficulty for this extended task is 2. So that brings you to 3 points of momentum. Resistance comes from the department. So what's your department? Your medical
Medicine.
What's that?
Oh, my department is 4.
Okay, so 4 minus 1 because the resistance becomes 3. That's how the resistance works. So you've got 3 points on your progress track with 3 points of momentum left. So what you could do is spend 2 of those for an extra point of progress.
Given what we're trying to achieve, that's probably a good idea. We'll throw 1 back into momentum and gain another progress point.
Nice.
So the 2 of you start working between Scon pointing out this is the person and knowing the science officers involved well enough to maybe calm them down with his Vulcan logic whilst you're doing. Yeah. That sort of allows you to do the scans and keep them from panic moving around or trying to, getting frustrated and not quite knowing how to handle it themselves, if you know what I mean. So you have moved along in that direction. So let me just make a quick note here because this is not quite as difficult as the communications or as was the capturing the goop last time. So you are well on your way. So Rupert and Jan, your dice rolls will be to move this progress on this extended task. So you were trying to check the communications gear, I believe, Tennant. So that would be engineering and probably insight, but I would allow reason if you were so inclined.
Yeah, we'll go with engineering and reason if that's all right.
Absolutely. Our little tart is showing off.
1 success.
You look pretty on screen, Daddy.
Yeah, when she's not disappearing off into the background. Okay, so 1 success. Basically, I need to give you the difficulty before you roll because that way you.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. It just then allows you to make a decision as to whether you want to buy additional dice, which you can do. But unfortunately, you've already rolled, so 1 success is insufficient. You don't get past the difficulty. So you start looking, but having difficulty getting past the static because this is being piped throughout this entire room. You're hearing it repeated from varying different machines, even with people's headphones on or whatever the equivalent. It's leaking and it's really irritating. It's currently you're getting a bit frustrated with it. Your concentration isn't quite there. So, Jan, you were going to try to start investigating this static.
Yep.
So again, unless you have a specific other thought, I would say probably it's going to be insight and engineering, I would have thought. But I would accept reason.
No good insight. I have a focus of crisis management.
In the same way as with Rogers, I'll say yes.
Well, there's a bit of a crisis going on and I'm trying to manage it.
The things you're doing is not so much a crisis. That's more the biological containment problems. But with all the other stuff, I'm happy to accept it because, again, first, this is lower decks. It's not serious. Would you like to buy any additional dice?
Yeah, I'll have one. One, two, and that's 4. 4 successes.
No problem. So difficulty was 2. So you succeeded with 2 points of momentum. What is your engineering?
2.
2. Okay, so I would definitely suggest you use the momentum to buy additional progress because at the moment the resistance of this task is 2, which means you've succeeded, but without that you wouldn't get any progress.
Yep, push it forward.
No problem. So you start working through this static of this communication with all the other people doing their bits and pieces. You're getting somewhere. It seems, even though it would be sensible to be doing it otherwise, it's almost like everyone's working their own way, individually, trying to get to decrypt this static communication. It's not really moving forward too well. So we'll carry on. So you spend a little time doing those things. During this period, the communications from sickbay pipe through a new voice. This person is the person we've been trying to get hold of, and her name is, when I find the right sheet, it's on the other side of the character of the thing, Lieutenant Commander Talus. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her surname because a good hand at Scrabble. There's lots of vowels and lots of many, lots of consonants, lots of many vowels. But she is a half Andorian with blonde hair one side and dark brown the other. And she comes onto communication. Yo, I understand there's some kind of gnarly disease going on. Like, this sounds totally up my street.
So who's she ringing? Is the voice just on the tannoy or whatever?
She's joined the sick-bay science lab, conf lab, to try to deal with this thing. This character is actually the character played by Kipser on the Lollygaggers Star Trek game, but she was so lower decks, even though that wasn't a lower decks game. I asked her to use her character in this,
Yes.
and she not only said yes, but she actually gave me her character sheet. So
Cool.
it's a real shame we couldn't get her on for this, but I don't think it would be. I think she's probably still at work.
Oh.
So she will assist. She's going to assist you guys, and so. What are you guys? Are you going to continue working together to try to do more? Because you've got some scans of the there's 2 guys. You're picking up some kind of biological contaminant of a type that you've never come across before.
Yeah. So my first step would be to cross-reference the scans I'm taking now versus them from their last medicals, because that will isolate exactly what's different.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, that's good. And I'll assist you again.
No problem. Because of the whole point of having the conflab is that people are going to be assisting you.
Yeah, so I'm basically going to be feeding the data live into the Zoom thing. You know, the whole side-by-side thing that they show of, look, here's the DNA strand here, and then if you compare it here, and then you overlap them, because that's for some reason what they do.
Yeah.
So, Lieutenant Commander Talus is going to be assisting you as well. So, again, I think this is basically going to be a rinse and repeat because there's only 6 of each type, 6 attributes in 6 departments. So we know what we're going to be using. So insight or reason and medicine, and then how is Nick? Are you going to be just? Are you going to be? I don't think there's the pointing out who was affected. This
No.
So in what manner do you think you're going to assist?
Well, if Danny's like telling stuff, I'll
chemical
put it into the
contact.
computer or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, Scott might be really useful at looking at like chemical contaminants.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because obviously engineers look at different biological matter than
Sure. And the scientists.
scientists than medical officers. So it's just kind of
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the
yeah.
extra pair of eyes looking at the different chemical profiles. And
Yeah.
Danny will just be throwing huge amounts of information out there in a desperate attempt to try and impress this lieutenant commander that he's suddenly on a call with.
Yeah.
No problem. So I would say for SCON, it's going to be most likely reason and science. Seems to like
All right.
it sounds like you're hitting it more from the science angle than the medical
cool.
angle. So no problem. And Lieutenant, the Commander Talus is going to go with reason and science because that's her thing with the infectious diseases focus.
Okay. Can I use a momentum?
You most certainly can.
Because I don't think I'm going to get the tricorder bonus on this one because I'm using computers now rather than
Okay.
scanning. I'm comparing the information.
No problem. So Nick, do you want to roll your roll?
Yeah. Oh, 19. Wah, wah, wah.
You have got 3 points of determination. So if something matches your value, you can spend it to re-roll. I'd say the mission on this is discover the decrypt communication and keep the ship safe. So if
I think I don't want to spaff for determination to just re-roll one dice. So
you re-roll as many dice as you want.
Okay.
Sure, but I've only got one dice because I'm assistant.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to.
You might have been better using it before you rolled, and then you could turn it to a 1 and have 2 successes straight off the bat. Too late now.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'll just take that. I mean, it's not a 20.
Yeah.
I'll just take the flub.
No problem. And Roger.
I got a 13, a 14, and a 4, which I think is 4 successes, but it depends whether the difficulty thing knocks one off my department score before or after.
It's after. So
okay, then it is 4, because otherwise it would have knocked it down from 4 to 3, and it would have been 1.
No, that's fine. Talus got 1, so that brings you up to 5. So difficulty is 2.
Yeah.
Yours was 4, which gets dropped down to 3 from the resistance. You have gone past the first breakthrough, and the first breakthrough gives you the trait gene sequence. The temporary trait of gene.
Nice.
And I will write that. I'll put that on the.
Okay, perfect.
Thing. It won't be in the prettiness that Rupert did because I'm just going to type it. And basically, you can use this. I know it's not even going to be spelled correctly because I've just noticed. Never mind. It didn't pick up the first R. Never mind. You can use this to reduce the difficulty by 1.
Nice.
When you claim on it, if it's relevant to the thing you're doing.
Cool.
But you got 5. You needed 2. You have 3 points of momentum. So.
I've been taking a lot from the pool, so I'm going to put all 3 of them back into the momentum pool to kind of help make sure other people have got plenty.
I mean, I will remind you, you can just add to threat, which is not just the ref saying give me threat because I want to use it against you. I'm terrible for gaining threat and very rarely using it. I actually had to add about 30 odd threat counters for one game I was doing, and between sessions I had to print 30 more because I ran out one session. I had 30 on the table.
Then you spent about 20 of them on one manoeuvre and it still failed.
Yeah.
He kept spending threat to re-roll and he was just
it was
not rolling well.
Yeah, problem. So we'll move back over to Tennant and Ngao. What's your plan?
I think Tennant has had that miserable failure and is probably going to double down and try and take a different. Sorry, can you hear me? I think I'm cutting in.
There's
and
a
out.
little bit of cutting out, but it wasn't too bad.
Yes. Yeah, hang on. Oh, I can't turn it off. We'll see what happens. But yes, I think, yeah, just doubling down, trying to do something a bit different. Try and reroute more power to whatever system is trying to calculate. Well, I don't know if that would actually help, but I think having failed to work anything out himself, I think that's what he will do next.
No worries, no worries. So, Jan, are you going to be helping, or are you going to carry on?
I'm going to come over and give him the benefit of a couple of things that I picked up on the scanning that I was doing.
Sure.
Suggest he applies those parameters to what he's doing and see if it'll improve the outcome.
Sure. Okay, so you're rolling 1 dice.
Yep.
You're starting with 2. And I'm going to say that this is probably for Rupert, this will be reason and engineering. For Jan, I think this is going to be presence and command, because you're passing, or I would allow engineering instead of command, because you're passing what you found out so far.
I'll take command. I've got a higher number in it.
Fair enough. So first of all, Jan, do you want to roll?
Yep. Well, I needed 12 and I got 12.
Okay.
Just a success.
No worries.
I'm gonna. Can I buy a dice with momentum?
You most certainly can.
So just because I now have no faith in my rolling.
What I will also I'll just briefly come in with one thing which I did mention to Nick before, but by the time I did it was a bit late. One thing you can do, because you've got 3 determination, you can choose if you've got a value or a mission directive which matches what you're doing, appropriate to what you're doing. You can spend a determination to turn one of your dice to a 1, and you roll the rest of the dice, which means you automatically start with 2 successes before you've even made a dice roll.
I think all of my values are mostly about jury-rigging things to work. I'm not sure those really apply here.
There's also the mission directives of decrypt communication and keep ships safe, which would be and uphold the values of Starfleet, which is always a thing.
Okay, so can I use one of those determination to get a 1 then, using the decrypt communication?
You most certainly can.
Mission directive.
So turn one of your dice to a 1.
Yeah.
And roll the other 2.
That's 1 success again.
Okay, so it's 3 overall, plus Jan's, that's 4. You rolled 1, you got 2 for the determination spend and 1 for Jan. So that brings you to 2. What's your department for?
5.
Okay, nice. So 5 minus the resistance of 2. You get 3 points of progress, and you've got 2 points of momentum left over, which you can either put back in the pot. You can do the obtain information spend, where you get to ask questions, or you can spend them to increase the progress of the thing that you're doing by 1.
Is that 1 per point or 1 for both momentum
1
points?
for both. 1 for both.
I'll buy a progress point with those 2 momentum.
No problem. That's that. So you're starting to get some forward, well, pun not intended, some forward momentum with what you're doing. With the stuff that Ngao is telling you, you start to get a bit of an inkling as to, okay, oh, actually, yes, that makes sense. If I do this, this, and this, then, and you start to dig into it. You're seeing the patterns forming in the static signal. It's definitely a voice. You're not got enough information to be able to turn it into something audible. You're fairly sure that within there's also a video signal. So it's not just an audio signal, it's video as well. So back to Thatcher and Scone and Dr. Tallis.
Okay, so now, so we've identified the exact strain that's affecting the DNA.
You've identified what it is. You're not entirely sure specifically. It's not something you've seen before. This is an alien thing, but you've got enough information to be able to be moving on with.
So I guess the next step is working out exactly how it's doing, well, but exactly what it's doing and how it's doing it, because that'd be the first step to figuring out how to reverse it. So again, kind of just going to be talking lots and lots of medicine and science and trying to see if we've basically anyone might have, read a manual or a book about something that's done something similar in the past, whether it's, corroding machinery in the case of an engineer or, making things age rapidly for science or, or the medical versions thereof, and just trying to really get all of the science down to figure out, what it's doing.
Sure, no worries. Nick?
I will assist again. I think, how many more progress points do we need to solve this thing?
You are over halfway.
Right. All right, cool. So yeah, I'll assist. Same. We'll just be doing the same stuff then.
Sure. Okay. Tell us what as well.
I'm going to buy use another momentum to gain another die.
No worries.
All right.
And Tallis is chatting. Whilst you're doing this, Tallis is chatting in the background about, yo, dude, this is totally gnarly. I haven't seen anything this bad since we were on. And she starts talking about some random colony where they made wine that was aging prematurely.
Yes, sir. I totally agree, sir. This is very exciting.
So, what'd you get, Nick?
So I'm going to do what you said and use the determination to get a 1. 2 successes straight out.
Okie dokie.
I got 3, 5, 6, so I got another 4.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
So that brings you to 7 successes. So that's 5 points of momentum. So I'll put that. I'll add 1 from there.
Did we lower the difficulty because of the gene?
Good point. You did.
Oh yes, yes. Thank you, Nick. I'm glad you remembered.
I'll add that in as well. So you're now up to 8.
Hell yeah.
So that's 6 momentum. So that's a 4 for your department, -1 because of the resistance.
So 3.
So 3. You've now gone past the second breakthrough because there's 1 at 50% and 1 at.
So how much overflow have we got to play with?
You have got 6. Hold on, let me get my brain around. There's 7 points of momentum, 2 of which is instant. Now, breakthrough number 2 is increasing the difficulty by 1, so it's actually getting harder as the morphology of this bacteria or whatever it is shifting underneath your microscope as it gains mass.
So
absorbing the mass from the person.
So if we've still got a ton of momentum, can we use any of that momentum to do something to help us?
You can spend momentum at 2 per 1 to increase your progress.
Would that increase it towards the next goal, or would that only apply to this one?
It's to get. It's always to work towards finishing the entire progress track.
Okay. So we've got, how much did you say? 5 momentum.
You got 7 momentum because you only
7.
With the trait, you only needed 1 point. It was only 1 difficulty.
Right. Okay. Can we use 6 of the 7 to get 3 more points along, as we kind of really do make some significant progress, and then the other one will chuck back into the momentum pool?
So you actually spend 4 of the momentum because you were virtually at the end. It wasn't that big a thing.
Oh, okay.
You have 2 points of momentum back. So no problem. As you're working through, you see that this disease it's not a disease as such. It's a bacteria. It's a virus. It's
I've seen this sort of thing in chickens before. Calling to my veterinary medicine.
and basically what it does is it absorbs mass from its victim. So I'm starting to get dark in the room, and I'm noticing that my light is starting to make things a little spooky.
That sounds appropriate, given this thing's killing stuff.
Yeah.
As it's absorbing the mass, it's the
Darkening the light.
is expanding, increasing in its mass, and just you figure out what it is, and you kind of figure out that if you apply certain energies, you apply a specific kind of radiation regime and a little bit of this specific hyper spray, and add a little bit of Vaseline in just for good measure, and you can stop it from absorbing too much more, and it's not going to kill its victims. But as you get to the end of your task, what you have got left in the science lab, you can't really speak to the stuff that's outside, but you do know how to deal with that now. This mass, which is now good 4 times the size it was to begin with, splits into 2 discrete units of throbbing biological mass.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. It seems that you've been right in the right place to witness a birth of something as it splits into 2.
Do we know where this stuff came from?
An asteroid. There was an asteroid that one of the science teams went on a mission to.
We need to transport it back to the asteroid.
Same pattern, yeah.
No problem. So you've got it sorted. The 2 scientists, it's actually going to be effectively removing the affected limb and regrowing it is the way they'll deal with it, because the limb is atrophied. There's not much they can do about it. I mean, literally, it looks almost like it's atrophied beyond the level it should be able to atrophy, because the bone within the arm, the bone structure within the arm should be bigger than what the arm actually looks like. Cartoon level of atrophy. Almost to the point where the guy with the completely atrophied arm holds it up and it kind of just droops. But no problem. What I'll say is, for the next couple of cycles of what we're doing, you 2 can be dealing with the contaminant that's elsewhere on the ship, and Talos will continue to talk with you and sort of advise as you go and do it. But you've got enough information to be able to now deal with that.
Cool.
So, Tenon and Ngal.
Do you have any ideas, Ngal?
You gave me my only good one earlier. It's kind of... There's something there, but I just can't quite bring it to mind. I'm sure I read something about this.
The
static resonance waves, they can induce illness and hysteria in some races, apparently. So maybe they're trying to freak us out.
Just on the basis of the technobabble used in that, I'm going to add a point of momentum to the pot, because that was a nice bit of technobabble.
Thank you.
So no problem. You start doing that. Ngal gives you that thing, that little bit of spiel. I'm quite happy for you got to just do with you're attempting to continue to decrypt this static burst or whatever. Just
we're whittling away at it.
Yeah, because the thing that, as a ref, that I have to remember, and this is a good advice for any ref, is sometimes players don't always have the familiarity with the material or the mental energy to come up with new and exciting technobabble bullshit to come up with, this is what my character is doing. I mean, I've seen groups where they're absolutely on it and they come up with an absolutely beautiful role playing of, I'm doing this and this and this, and they come up with all the spiel, which is great. But you've got to give the players a bit of slack if they don't have the capacity to be able to do that, whether it be because it's just been a rough week or whatever. So
no, that's fair enough, I think. But I mean, yeah. So that's, I think, what Gao has said there makes sense. If from an engineering standpoint, we can, or I can suggest, Tannen can suggest matching the resonant frequencies, as you said, in Gao with the various frequencies of the neurons in various species that we have on board.
And whilst you're talking this, one of the medical team who happens to be wandering through, the chief masseurs of the El Cajon, comes up behind and starts kneading the knots at the back of a Gao to help her to concentrate. Yes, you have a chief masseuse officer.
Oh, that's good.
So, Jan, do you want to? How do you think you're helping in this particular case?
I had a good idea.
Okay, how do you think that would? Yeah, let's say that's going to be a reason, and I'd say either science or engineering at this point. Depends on the angle you're hitting it from.
It hits the same level from me on by the side. But I'm going to spend a determination and roll a natural one.
Okay, fair enough. It's there for.
Yeah. So it gives us a good starting point for the assistance.
Yep, I'm sitting here with the dice in my hand because I was using that for Talus's assistance to your rolls, and I was suddenly sitting there thinking, why do I have a dice in my hand? She's not assisting with this. So no problem. So Tannen.
I'm going to once again spend a momentum to buy a die, a die, just because I have no faith anymore in what happens here. So is this the same as before? Engineering and
It is. I am going to, given the circumstances, what we had with the gene sequence trait and the realization that we'd forgotten it, I just realized that we've forgotten another trait which you created from the previous one, insight into communication static, which reduces the difficulty by 1.
Nice.
So just do this. We'll just start from here because I'm not going to wreck on it. But don't forget that, which reduces the difficulty of the tasks that you're doing.
Okay, so again, it's still engineering and reason, or is it anything?
Engineering reason sounds reasonable, unless you can think of another skill, another combination you think would be more appropriate.
I don't think so. No, I think that's fine. Okay. That's 3 successes this time.
Nice. So that brings you up to 5. You only need 1 because of the trait. So you've got 4 points of momentum. Your department was 5, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so -2 because of the resistance brings that to 3, and you've got 4 points of momentum. So you've got 2 instant momentum you have to use or lose.
Spend them to move it forward.
No problem. So
Increase the move it forward a bit.
Yep. So that gives you another point of progress. As that's now reached a breakthrough point, that reduces the resistance by 1. So you're actually moving more quickly. You've broken the back of the task to an extent. You've got a bit of an understanding as to where to move from here. You've got this is the things you're doing are working, and you're starting to get. I mean, some of you may be too young to remember this, but certainly when I was a lad, and probably the same with, well, definitely the same when Jan was younger. You sometimes the signal you'd be getting on the TV was really bad. It was basically snow, but you could just about see in the background the picture that whatever the TV program was. It's starting to get to that level. It's still too staticky to be able to get a true idea of what it is.
I'm going to waggle the aerial then.
Left a bit. No, you're left. No problem. And you still have 2 points of momentum. Am I putting that in the pot?
Yes. Well, I think so.
No worries. No worries. So, unless there's something particular, Roger, Nick, you beyond the dealing with the other areas of contamination, are you doing anything particular?
Probably looking to see how we can move the virus or the blob, or to get it off the ship. And anything, I mean, if the blob's the living thing, we want to know how we can get that off the ship safely, and how we can contain and destroy any unwanted bad stuff that's going to give people death.
Yeah, I mean, what you've learned from what you've been doing, you know how to effectively put it into a temporary stasis by applying these varying things to stop it from absorbing any more material, which is how you stopped it last round. But also, you can figure out when it was brought aboard, it was frozen.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'd probably be checking all of the science team, because they've been in the room with them.
Sure.
Without wearing, protective gear, to make sure that none of them are contaminated, and
No worries.
doing all the scans, trying to be helpful, because I'm sure there's some senior people I'd be trying to impress in there.
Well, you've got the chief science officer. Chief science officer in here, Sabra, who is a Denobulan, and you also have on the communications Lieutenant Commander Talus, who is the chief medical officer of another ship.
Yeah, so I'd be trying to, look busy, wanting to impress, but trying to be desperately trying to think to himself, what would, some of the famous doctors from Starfleet be doing, like, Crusher, Beverly Crusher, what would she be doing right now? And he's desperately trying to look like he knows what he's doing in front of these people. I'm probably failing.
As you're doing it, Talus actually over the I mean, you've got the image of her, you've got the visual of her, and she says, "Ensign Thatcher, isn't it? Like, have you ever tried surfing?"
No, Mom.
I think you need to
No,
learn.
sir.
Doctor, Lieutenant Commander, sir, madam, I like. It's fine. I'll tell you what. I'll send you my personal surfer program for the holodeck. It's like totally rad.
Thank you, sir.
You need to.
I'll be sure to try it.
You need to chill, like, dude. I mean, you're wound up tighter than Tribble on acid.
Don't mention tribbles.
That sounds like a story I need to know. Totally.
Orc tribbles, sir.
Ooh, rad.
No, sir.
Eyeball.
So you're doing this with Talus, basically just surfer duding her way through this conversation.
Well, Thatcher's desperate to look professional
Yeah.
and failing.
Scan, are you doing anything specific? Are you
I think
break the quarantine science lab? So
no, sure, but we know where the other blobs went around the ship. So can I, like, alert whoever's in them areas and maybe seal them areas off? Or...
I'm going to go off the assumption that you probably did that fairly early doors, because especially since one is the captain's restroom,
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
You know, having the captain's backside atrophy because you didn't tell him is probably not a good career move.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So then,
Career move?
It's a movement, but it's not a good career movement.
yeah.
So,
All right. So I guess if I can just like pass information to whoever I know has like sealed off them areas to like, you know, to tell them that we know it sort of subdued when it's frozen.
Sure.
So if
I mean,
they could do something like,
you've reached a point now where you could leave the science lab through the door quite happily because you've contained.
all right.
The science lab has been contained; it's been dealt with.
Right, okay.
You've got
So,
Thatcher desperately doing things to really impress people, and somehow,
Screwing it up, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I'm not sure I want to leave him because I want to be able to like back him up if he makes a complete plum of himself. So I don't think I will leave. I'll pass some information on, but I will stand by to assist Danny with anything that he's doing, just so he don't put his foot in it too bad.
No problem. So back to Rupert and Jan. I'm presuming it's going to be a rinse and repeat.
Yeah, pretty much.
Go for it.
We're getting there.
Yep.
Can I go mad and roll the dice this time?
Yeah, crack on.
Yeah, let's go mad and I'll roll the dice this time. Woohoo! I got 2.
Okay, so do you have a focus you think would be relevant?
Only the crisis management, but that's about it.
I allowed it last time, so what's your department?
2 is my lowest department, so it passes under anything really.
Sure. So you've got 2 successes from that. So correct.
Okay.
10. You buying extra dice again, or?
Yeah.
Might as well.
Yeah, by
We've
one
got
again.
loads of momentum.
You've got enough momentum to buy 3.
I'll buy 2 then. I won't go mad. I won't spend it all at once. Christmas is soon.
Don't say that. Don't say I'm old enough as it is. I don't need to get past another birthday quite yet.
If I say that that I've decided to try and analyze the subspace envelope that the static was in, would that allow me to use the subspace mechanics focus that I have?
It would absolutely do so. In fact, I would say you didn't even know to really, subspace communications are a thing, so that absolutely would work. But I'm quite happy for you to use that as a bullshit. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm rolling 4 now, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's 3 successes.
Okie dokie. So that brings you to 5. You only need 1 because of your trait. So that brings you to 4. One of which is a temporary instant momentum thing. So that is. You're now getting 4 points of progress because you got through the breakthrough, which reduced the resistance by 1. And you have 4 points of momentum. 1 point is instant. So what do you want to do with them? Do you want to buy extra progress? Do you want to ask? Do you want to use the obtain information?
What do you guys think? I'm fairly inexperienced with the use of momentum and.
Well, we can either speed ourselves up towards the finish line. Is there anything else any other new information we could use to expand our knowledge right now?
Well, obtain information is you can ask me a single question about the scene, and I have to answer truthfully, and that's a 1 point to do that. And you can do that. That's one of the few that you can do repeatedly. So you can spend as much as you want on that. If you've got questions you think might aid, then that might be worth doing. You can create a trait for 2 momentum in the same way as you already did previously, which would have the effects as previously mentioned, but you have 1 trait already. So
I think it's probably best to try and just push on towards the end then.
Yeah. All right.
So are you using it all for progress or half and half?
Half and half. Then we can put something back in the pot for everybody.
No problem. So that's another point of progress. As you're doing this, as you're tweaking your communications equipment, and you're balancing up varying sine waves and all that kind of science jargon, there's a momentary blip as the entire communication array kind of blacks out and then comes back online. You're not sure whether that was you or somebody else. You should be fine. It should be fine. This was another breakthrough, by the way. And this breakthrough reduces the difficulty by 1. So it's got a difficulty of 1 now, not including the trait. When it restarts, things are starting to make much more sense. You're getting a bit of there's 2 or 3 underlying parts of this communication. One of which is definitely saying that it's coming from the Delta Quadrant. It gives you a specific what's the word I'm looking for? A specific base, a specific area. The point of origin. That's the one I was looking for. And you can nail that down, that this is coming from where you expect the communication to come from in the first place. So this seems to be suggestive it's the right thing. Roger, Nick, you have completed everything you can do. The medical side of things has been dealt with. Talos has actually has unfortunately been cut off by the resetting of the communication grid. So what do you guys want to be doing? Your colleagues are trying to deal with this communications issue.
So I guess I'd make sure I go through any required, decontamination protocols that we would have to go through, and then enthusiastically sprint through the corridors of the ship towards where I think they are to try and help.
They're actually
probably get in the way.
Yeah, they're actually in a science lab, not far from the science lab you were in, because they just took one of the science labs that was dealing more with the kind of equipment that you would need for decrypting, a computer science lab or something like that. So it doesn't take you very long to you get a quick scan and you're completely clear, and you take your environment suit off and stick it in a slot that deals with potentially contaminated equipment.
Laundry chute. Just
Laundry chute that goes down and turns it into its constituent atoms to be potentially reused.
Yeah.
And you can make your way to like 2 or 3 doors down. You can come in and you can see Ngao being massaged by the big burly chief masseuse officer, and sitting beside her is Tenon, and they're working on the communications. Nick, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'll follow as well. I'll go and join everyone else.
No problem. So the band is back together.
Yeah.
What appears to be the problem?
Well, we're analysing the static levels because they seem to have a resonance.
Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds like code breaking. Can I have a look?
Yeah. Sure. If you see these, the sine waves and the delta sine waves are looping a hypnosis pattern for certain on-craft species. And we're trying to isolate if they're doing it deliberately or if it's pure coincidence.
Oh, could be some form of communication. That sounds like fun. I've seen this before on certain planets. Some of them like to use kind of what we would appear as static or even as subvocal communications.
So there are seats for you to take, or units for you to get to. As you're doing this communication, someone else, the look on his face is he's had a eureka moment, and his fingers fly across the console and he presses a few buttons and the static stops briefly, and in its place is Jazz FM, and then it goes back. So I'm presuming you're all basically going to try and crack off this communications glitch.
Well, that was a blast from
Yeah.
the past, wasn't it?
I believe that's a favourite of Captain Riker.
Ah,
Smooth jazz. Yes.
Yeah.
Trombone jazz.
Give me warp in the number of 5, 4, 3. Or whatever it was. Okay, so yeah, in general, that's going to be, well, actually, it depends on how you're doing it. So again, Tenon, you're doing things the engineering route. I think from the sound of things, Jan, you were pretty much doing fairly similar.
yeah.
How
Yeah,
do you?
so, you know, although it's a breach, it's not really a security breach per se. It's a communications breach. So, trying to work on it from the engineering side of things, which is not my biggest skill, but we're getting there.
So how does Thatcher think he's going to be helping?
So
Or
Thatcher-
enthusiasm?
Thatcher's actually going to be looking to see if there's some kind of like hidden message or anything in the static. He's looking for patterns and potential, things such along those sorts of lines.
Okay. So that sounds like insight and engineering.
Can I use my linguistics focus?
You absolutely can. Scum?
Yeah, I mean, I can do the same, or I can assist as well. And I don't have a language focus, but I have logic. I assume that
Yeah.
I could try and look for patterns with that.
I could see logic would work. So
Is that good or
Yeah.
bad?
are
Oh,
you
good.
okay? It looks like Roger's already rolled.
Sorry,
right.
I won't say what I've
That's
rolled,
right.
so you can.
What I was going to say was, are people going to do the assistant, one person roll, one person assist? Is everybody going to be assisting one person? What's your plan? How are you going to handle this? Because at the moment it's been one person assist, one person roll in the 2 different tasks.
I think Thatcher's probably too enthusiastically doing something to be of much help.
Yeah, fair. All right. So I'll then, seeing that Thatcher's quite giddy on his own and sucked into the computer, I'll back away and leave him to it and go to where the other 2 are and see if I can assist you guys.
No worries.
And I'll do an assist for whoever's doing
Yeah.
the main role.
No worries. So Roger.
I got 3 successes.
Nice.
I had to check that the evil face on my Acton Cthulhu dice was a good thing and not a bad thing.
Nice.
So with because of the that was 3, wasn't it?
Yes, and if there's a difficulty, I might think my quick study reduces it.
As it stands, there is a trait which Tenon created last week called Insight into Communication Static, which reduces the difficulty to 1. And because they went through the second breakthrough, it reduces the difficulty to 0.
Aha.
So you've got 3 points of momentum at the moment,
Bloody hell.
one of which is
Um,
instant. So 2 of which is instant.
I'll use 2 of them to advance the thing by 1, and the other one just to add to the momentum pool.
Sure. What's your department? What's the number?
I was using engineering, which is 3.
So it's 3. -1 because of the resistance there, so 2 of that, and back to +1 because of the additional progress. So no problem. You're powering through. You sit down and you start listening to it and working through. Instantly, I mean, no one else must have noticed this because they would have said otherwise, but instantly you can recognize that there is an image and audio there. You can't quite make it out, but you're getting there. And you start dialing it in. The fact that the others had already got the image and the sound completely passes Thatcher by.
Oh yeah, like I said, I'm helping.
Yeah, actually are helping. It's just there's a certain level of it's a certain Boimler-esque of Thatcher's actions here.
Yeah.
So I think Nick and Jan, do you want to make your 1 dice rolls?
Yeah. I have made my 1 dice roll. I
Yeah.
have 2 successes.
What's the attribute and whatnot, did you say, Richard?
I've been using reason and engineering.
I mean, it depends on how you do.
Alright.
You could, in theory, do your reason and science because you're doing it from a science
Yeah.
All right.
mentality, and logic would absolutely work here.
Yeah, 1 success. No, correct though.
No problem.
Okay, Rupert, the pressure's on.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy 2 dice again.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. That's 4 successes this time.
Hell yeah, bloody hell.
Nice one.
Okay, so that's 6 points of momentum. So that's 3 points of instant momentum. There is 5 becomes 4. Okay. You, to begin with, it looks like you're going to need to do a bit more work. You're not far off getting it, but you're going to need a little bit more. But then, as between Scon and Gao, excuse me, you start diving into what you're doing, and you also spot that someone, and you realise now that it's Thatcher, has actually just pushed a few bits and pieces in such a way as it actually aids what you're doing. And
By accident.
yeah, and you successfully decrypt communication. There's again, the communication system basically temporarily blacks down. In fact, the lights in the room dim briefly, probably making Thatcher think he's done something wrong or something. And as it comes back on, the communication comes back up. An image flicks onto every screen in the room, and in fact across the entire starship, as was set up by the command crew. This is what they were planning to do, sort of. Before we get to that, you have 3 points of instant momentum. I'm going to put the proper momentum into the pot because we can always dig from there. You've got 3 points of instant momentum, which you could either use to do things like asking questions, creating traits, things like that, or you can just let it go. Because
Okay, so I have a thing, the studious talent. So if I ask a question, I get 2 for 1.
Yeah.
So if you want to obtain any information, any questions you can think of, I'll spend the thing and do the 2 for 1 thing. And then I think we could do a trait, could create a trait that might be handy. If anyone can think of one.
Enthusiastic accidents.
Yeah, actually, that's quite a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find something out where not actually realising we're doing it.
That's actually really good, yeah. We can accidentally...
Because you can use that
Discover
that
stuff.
can be used for all sorts of things, really.
Can we get away with that, Richard? An
Absolutely.
enthusiastic accident
I'm
trait?
literally just writing it down.
Wicked. So what we could do is spend the last point of momentum and then one of our own to make it a permanent trait, and then it goes on forever.
Yeah,
Wow, okay, that's really...
why not?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Because I think we're the kind of crew that will fall across
It'd be
things rather
useful.
than actually
You just have
research
to-
them and find them.
We just have to remember that we've got it, that's all.
Well, that's what the channel is for. So I have added
Yes.
that on. I shall take a point of momentum, permanent normal
Brilliant.
momentum out and use that. So no problem. You do all of this. You manage to. You've got 6. Sorry, you've got 5 momentum. Yeah. Sorry. You do this absolutely. You successfully get this communication up and running. What happens is it flicks up, as I say, on all the screens, and you see 11 seconds of footage of an elderly Talaxian, which is the same species as Neelix from Voyager, attempting to use his communication terminal. He doesn't actually seem to realize he's transmitting to the Mutara array. What he seems to be doing is doing a shopping list. And it's very much 1 packet of apples, Not those really rubbishy ones from that species that came the other day. The proper ones. I also want some, and he goes through varying things that he's wanting to buy. And then it becomes more of a notes thing. Remember to call the doctor. I found a really annoying, and he's about to say something that sounds like probably a bit more personal than any of you really need to know. When from across the room, outside of the view of the view screen, a female voice says, "Dad, hold on, don't." And she rushes over and sort of presses a few buttons. And as she's saying, "You're on a computer," it just cuts. At this point, another communication is about to come in. You get the initial thing, and we cut to the bridge. Obviously, you guys won't see this per se, but the audience see. We cut to the bridge. The captain is told by an officer, "We have a communication coming in, sir, from the Mutara Nebula. This one seems to be unencoded." Okay, let's put it through on the main screen first before we start transmitting, just in case. And then we cut back to your group as, again, the image pops up. And this time it is of the female Talaxian you saw at the end of the elderly guy's list that he was building. Hello, I am... Actually, the ref has just realised the one thing he didn't put down was a name for a female Talaxian. Let's cheat. Female Talaxian. Name. Dexa. I am Dexa. My apologies for the previous communication. My father hadn't realized that the communication array he was using was the main one I use. So instead of being as it would normally be, just plumbed into the normal computers and normal communications within the colony, it has the direct connection to yourselves. Apologies again. And she starts going through the kind of reports that this communication normally would do. And it's quite exciting because some of it is they're talking about new species they've come across. The Rovali, this a species who are the most unusual one she's ever seen because they are tripods. They have 3 legs and 3 arms. It's almost like the central stalk of the body has got equilateral 3 limbs, top and bottom. And she says about how they speak, 3 speak at once in a very unusual style. So it's quite staccato as each one speaks a word and then the next one speaks another word and the next one speaks another word. But it all makes sense as they kind of staccato noises which make communication. And they also make some very interesting, very tasty goulash. It's quite unusual. I'll send you the recipe, although I think there might be some ingredients you might not have access to. But if I can get the replicator patterns, I'll send those in a subsequent message. Neelix sends his love and says, make sure you wrap up warm. It's cold in space. Yes, well, that's about all for today. I'll have another one next week. Thanks, everyone. Oh, and can you remind Mr. Oh God, what's his name? What's the name of the security officer, Dad? Tuvok? Ah, that's it. Can you remind Tuvok he still owes me a pair of tights? And then it goes to black.
I'm writing this down, Tuvok owes a pair of tights.
And yeah, the whole crew is now to. There's a lot of communication, a hubbub of people talking about the first communication that you managed to translate and to decrypt, and then also this communication and the weird contamination that was happening. There's a lot of chat being done around that. Is there anything you guys would want to be doing at this point? You have successfully decrypted the communication and dealt with the contaminant.
What do you do with the goo then?
It has been contained before we can send it back to where it came from.
Fair enough.
The chief medical officer and chief science officer approach you guys and say, right, well done. There was really good work with the contaminant, Thatcher and Scon. Much appreciated. Your two compatriots, she says, looking at Scon, will be much improved once we've been able to regrow their limbs. We hadn't realised, but one of them had one of his ears had started atrophying as well. The first one, which was slightly awkward. He was a Bajoran, and it got very messy with the earring. But we'll get there. So I've spoken to Commander Heng, and he has basically said that we can borrow you, not necessarily immediately. You'll need to get at least a little bit organized yourself and maybe have a bit of a downshift. But can you take that back to the asteroid that we left it on? You'll need to take one of the runabouts because it's a bit of a journey. You'll need to do a warp journey to, and they give you the coordinates.
Nice.
Yes, sir. Of course, sir. Do you want us to go now, sir?
I'm like elbowing you. Just we have to have a downshift first, honey. Recover a little bit.
Can I have from everyone apart from Roger a insight and security roll, please?
Holy shitballs. I just rolled 2 20s. 2 nat 20s.
This way you just
Thanks,
gun them both
online
down.
dice roller, yeah, thanks.
Accidentally just kill them both.
Yeah, slap the person who asked us to go.
Unless someone can think of a specific complication, I think I'm just going to add some just add to threat because that's one thing.
I quite like the idea of just slapping them because I didn't
I
expect
Vulcan nerve pinch the one who asks. That's the thing.
them. Just out of shock. Slap.
Okay, so we'll put 2 points into threat, and the other complication is you do that to. She reaches over to probably to your own science officer, because the medical officer is a Vulcan, so it's unlikely that you would.
Yeah, I would fall for it.
Yeah, so you're having this conversation, and your boss, she Thatcher sees her reach over to her own boss and just go. Eh. And the only reaction you get from the chief medical, oh dear, I think we've lost Roger. The only reaction from the chief medical officer is a single eyebrow goes up, the head tilts to one side. I believe a rest cycle would be a good idea at this point. I will ensure that the samples are appropriately stored in the runabout for your next. Could you please take Ensign Thatcher away?
Yeah, I just usher him out.
So, what about Tenon and Ngao? Did you get any successes on your roll?
I got 2 successes, so
Yeah.
I feel somewhat to blame for Nick's difficulties.
Yeah.
2.
Okay, so it was a 1 difficulty. So you got 1 point of instant momentum, and I put 1 in the pot. As this is all happening, there's actually a thump as whilst he's laughing his arse off, Thatcher kind of backed up.
Thatcher wouldn't be laughing his ass off. That was very much me. Thatcher would be like,
Okay, as Thatcher is doing a step back, he actually trips over his own dog, who is
Oh no!
now. You look down, you can you two spotted before he did it, but now that he falls over, the others can spot as well. But you guys see first. You didn't get quite a chance to sort of giving any warning. His dragon dog is sitting there wearing a environment suit ish. The visor is up and his nose is sticking out through the front of this helmet, panting, and then Thatcher kind of steps back and trips over him. And written it down, Tucker immediately turns around and starts slobbering over Thatcher's face. As you know, as they do, licking his face and sort of paws on his chest. And at this point, the chief medical officer kind of looks at the scene, picks up the science officer, puts her over her shoulder, and just walks off. And although we're a little bit early, I think this is a good place to stop, because I think much more, and we're really working on the coming up with something just to fill time. So thank you everybody for playing. It's always fun. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you for another session next week. It certainly seems to be the plan. So
Awesome.